And we're off again with another little lunchtime live bit. Today we don't have any crime news. That's not because there's not any crime, it's because I haven't been able to find any reported on the social media sites that I'm on. So there you go. So if you get lots of crime reports and you publish a social media site, I'd like to join. From my point of view, we can only report the news that we get. So if you know about curtain cutting near where you're spending the night, if you know about diesel thefts near where you're spending the night, if you know about cargo thefts from the back of trucks where you're spending the night, then I'd like to know, because what we'll do is pass the word on. We'll tell other drivers, point one, we'll tell the general population, point two, and we'll tell the police and enforcement authorities, point three, because they should be doing something about it, and point four, we'll also tell the people who run the truck stops, because they should bloody well be doing something about it. We do see people make brave attempts, like the Riverside Cafe, who up in Colnbrook, I think, who have had some trouble lately, that even though they've employed a security guy. What you can say to that, I don't really know, but poor people, I feel really sorry for the cafe owners and the truck stop owners who try and stop crime and have problems and maybe fail. I'm just going to give you a bit more volume, I hope that's better. From my point of view, I think it's a really sad thing to see, and I'm immensely sad to see that people get this kind of problem from doing their best. So there you go. But if you know of crime happening that affects trucks, drivers, hauliers, then please let me know. We're usually looking at Facebook at around 7 o'clock in the morning. So if there's something on there between 7 and maybe 10, we'll report it and try and get the news out there so that people are aware of the crap that goes on, because in reality most people aren't. Trucks, like a lot of other things in this world, are a bit invisible. So in other words, you're driving along in your little roller skate, and what happens? Well, you're overtaking a bloody truck. You know what I mean? And so in fact, trucks, like a lot of people, are invisible. We don't really see them unless they're a nuisance. Much like people like me, old geezers, you know, the reality is that we get to be invisible as well. So there you go. Anyway, okay, so if you know of stuff that's going on that you think the news needs to be spread, tell me and I will try and tell the world. There you go. Okay, so there you go. So today on Trucking TV, as we don't have any crime and similar kind of reports to give you, we'll give you a bit of an update on the famous 50,000. That's the 50,000 plus claimed vacancies or alleged vacancies that are reported to be, I don't know what you'd say, not there in England. The people like the RHA and the FTA and the government say, oh, we're short of 50,000 drivers. Well, drivers often say to us, that doesn't make sense, because I don't see 50,000 trucks parked up in haulage yards. I don't see 50,000 job advertisements wherever I go. And the truth is, that's true, you don't. And stuff still gets to the supermarket, so it's an interesting one. I've spoken to quite a number of people, and one of the things that all the people say that you speak to is that it's patchy, it's different areas. So in some areas of the UK, there are no jobs for drivers. Drivers' jobs are filled, and you can't find a job. So there are going to be people who say, I'd like to find a job near home, and they can't. There are other parts of the UK where companies say we can't find drivers for love or money. The reality is that they probably could find some drivers for money, but the reality is that there are areas where the driving population is fully engaged and there's more work than there is drivers. So there you have it. It's like, I live, as I think people know, in Felixstowe in Suffolk. So Felixstowe, well, down the road at the docks, there are literally dozens of jobs. If you can breathe on a regular basis, and if you have an LGV Class 1 licence, you can probably get a job as long as you didn't shoot your last employer. So there you have it. So it's worth thinking about. There's people do move for jobs. I think it's a tough thing to do, but there are quite a lot of drivers who actually work in one area and live a little bit further away than you might in any other kind of job, especially if it's a nights out job, because you're only going to work once a week on a Monday, and you're only going home once a week on a Friday or a Saturday maybe. So there you have it. That's that point answered. But some of the things that deal with drivers' jobs are really quite complicated. I've managed to get a very, I guess you'd say, thoroughgoing report from the Freight Transport Association, the employers' organisation. And I'm going to share some bits of that with you today, but what I'm going to do in the next couple of days is make a proper report, and perhaps we'll see that probably either tomorrow or Saturday if I get the chance, and otherwise next week. But what we're going to look at is kind of this notional 50,000 drivers that we're looking for. One of the things that I think we need to start looking at is a background to it. So I've done a little bit of work and I'll share that with you. So here we go. This first and foremost is the population of UK drivers, LGV drivers, and the population, the general working population. So what we've got is a really interesting mismatch between the general working population and the truck driving population. As you can see, there is a very large difference between the number of people in the general population between 45 and 59. That's a big bulk of the population, but it's a much bigger bulk, that's in red, of the driving population. So a huge number of drivers are between 45 and 59 years in age. So there you have it. So that's a mismatch. And when we get down to young people, then it's clear to see that young people aren't coming into the industry. The working population 16 to 24, there's about, there's I guess about 15%, coming up 14 to 15% of them are the general population level, but the LGV driver level is something that looks like around 1.5–2%. So in other words, young people, I know this is a bit of a red herring because you can't start driving a truck now until, what are you, 17 or 18? I think 18. But in reality, people aren't coming into the industry at that level maybe. There's a larger lump in the next group up, the 25 to 34s. There's about 20% of HGV drivers are in that group, and about coming up for 25% of that group are in the general population. So it's an interesting one. We do have more people growing older and retiring in the truck driving population than we do in the general population. So you can see the older group, 60 to 64, there are more truck drivers there than there are in the general population. But that just gives us a bit of a clue, doesn't it, really? Sam Hanna, yes Sam, 28 and been driving for 10 years. If I could get out, I would. The only reason I'm here now is I'm on agency just to earn a decent wage. I think that's pretty tough, Sam, from the sound of things. Are you fed up with it? Is it because the job has become worse since you started, or was it always bad news? That's a general kind of question to you, mate. But I'm sorry to read your comment anyway. Okay, so let's go back to this. Now, this is the LGV pass rate, and I wanted to get onto this because one of the things I've been trying to find is how many LGV drivers retire each year, because obviously we need to have as many or more LGV drivers come into the business to actually replace that number of retirees and leavers. So managed to find this one, LGV pass rate, and I'm not so much looking at the pass rate but at the actual passes. So in 2017, the most recent year we've got proper full figures for, there were 41,000, nearly 42,000 new LGV licence holders in the UK, and in the first 6 months of this year, roughly the same figure, around 20,000. So that's around half that number. So we're getting around 40,000 new drivers a year. The thing I can't get at the moment, but when I can get it, I'll let you know, is the number of people who actually retire out of the business. So there you have that one. This page, I think kind of demonstrates how difficult it is to work out these numbers. As you can see, they've got all kinds of factors that they have to factor in to try and work out what the number of bodies is. I'm just going to have a look at this guy. This is Darren, and Darren's made a couple of good points. Darren Yeoman, the company I work for, is struggling to recruit new drivers, so offers warehouse to wheels, and at first the take-up was good, but time has gone on because the warehouse lads who ended up becoming drivers went back to the warehouse because they find the daily stress of driving too much, even with the increased pay. Now that, I think, proves a big point, doesn't it? It does prove the big point that the driving job today is tough. I had a job many years ago driving trucks, and that was back in the days of when you filled in your logbook. So that's going back a long time. People can probably recall. But back in those days, the driver's job was not too bad. The hours regulations were still a requirement, but in reality, they weren't that bad. The amount of documentation and training that you had to do compared to today was minuscule. So these days drivers have to go through hoops, jump through hoops all the time to actually keep the job. So my honest answer on that is that drivers need to be revalued, I think. One of the things that the government and other people say is that driving is a low skill job, and then you look at the amount of crap drivers have to go through to actually keep working in the job. Courses that are required, etc. How many jobs require you to go on courses all the time that you're in employment? I don't know. Maybe it's worth finding that one out as well. Okay, I'm Chris. This is Trucking TV. I'm going to leave you with it for a little while now, and hopefully everything I said was audible. Oh, what I thought. Oh no. And we'll get back to you as soon as we can with a bit more kind of information, really, because this driver shortage thing is kind of, I think it's kind of in danger of being a red herring, but it's also in danger of being something that we don't take proper notice of. If drivers, let's be honest, if we are so short of drivers, when a haulage company is going to start paying more wages? That's the question of the day, I guess. Okay, this is us. This is Trucking TV. This is all the locations at which you can find us. We're on Facebook, we're on YouTube, we're on Twitter, and of course you can find us on the phone. Don't forget, if you have a message or text, then that's a phone number you can use. We can't take direct phone calls because bluntly we don't have the time. Okay, I'm Chris. This is Trucking TV. I will see you as soon as I can. Take care out there.